course, we are responding to, well, it's the day after the storm, as it were. How big was that storm for you? It depends on where you're sitting. As a Reform member, as a Conservative member, there are, some Reform people pretty grumpy if any Tory so much as gets near the postcode of Reform HQ. I can sort of see the reasons why, although, what is the option? I mean, everyone's got to have a backstory, haven't they? I mean, does that mean they ban anyone that was whoever voted for any political party? Or is it just the Tories? Where does it leave the Conservative Party? I thought Kemi Badenoch played a blinder, frankly, just on stealing the march and kind of owning the story before anybody else spoke about it. That's kind of important. But as we sit here today and wounds are being licked, where does it leave the Conservative Party? Let's speak to Dan Hodges, commentator with the Mail on Sunday. Afternoon to you, Dan. I mean, never a dull moment down there at Westminster. Yesterday was more drama, this time Jenrick. No real surprise if we stop and think about it that he's finally legged it over there to Reform HQ. But where does it leave the Conservative Party?
I think, to be honest, it leaves the Conservative Party in a stronger position this morning or this afternoon, because it's definitely strengthened the position of the Conservative Party's leader, Kemi Badenoch. I mean, I agree with your analysis. I mean, I thought she did very, very well yesterday in terms of spiking Jenrick's guns, spiking Nigel Farage's guns. And frankly, I thought she did a pretty good job of exposing Robert Jenrick for what a lot of his colleagues and a lot of people in Westminster think Robert Jenrick is. I mean, Robert has been out this morning protesting that his move had nothing to do or was not motivated primarily by personal ambition. I think everybody who stood back objectively and looked at what he's done, obviously because it's not the first time he's done it, he obviously did the same thing to Rishi Sunak. This is kind of what I think most people think underpin it. It's Robert Jenrick's own personal ambition, and frankly, I think we had this extended speech yesterday in which he articulated his reasons for defecting, where he was standing alongside Nigel Farage. I think the actual political reality is if Robert Jenrick thought it would get him personally closer to Downing Street, we would have seen him standing next to Zach Palensky yesterday. I mean, I think that is the reality. It's very, very difficult to set aside and remove Robert Jenrick's sort of vaulting personal ambition from this whole saga. Yeah,
and that does seem to be a kind of fairly common knowledge around the room in Westminster, and he's sort of become this archdeacon of all things immigration related, but he was the guy that didn't like the Rwanda scheme, and in fact there were stories that he even burst into tears because he thought it was so cruel as a scheme. We can't always corroborate these things, but there's the word on the Westminster street. So yeah, a bit of a flip-flopper in that respect, personal ambition at the forefront of everything he does. He's certainly not alone in being one of those types at Westminster, but now he's gone, and Kemi Badenoch is a man down. Nick Timothy is certainly, I was about to say, an emerging figure. In Conservative terms, he's not that emerging, of course. Theresa May been around the block for a long time. Fairly powerful voice. Has she got the team there to make it work, though, Dan?
Yes, I think she's certainly got a better team. I mean, frankly, I'm going to be completely honest. I think her team has actually been strengthened by the removal of Robert Jenrick and the promotion of Nick Timothy. I mean, Nick Timothy is someone who is very well respected amongst his colleagues. He's popular amongst Tory activists, and he's someone at a time when I think a number of people are sort of slightly scared that we've got we're getting sucked into a sort of uber Punch and Judy style of superficial politics. He's somebody who does seem to have some gravitas, some heft, and to use that phrase, something of a political hinterland. So I certainly think his promotion is beneficial. But I also think we need to step back and we need to again look at the context of what happened yesterday. The simple reality is Robert Jenrick was staying in the Conservative Party and had stayed in the Conservative Party precisely because he thought that after May's local elections he would have the opportunity to replace Kemi Badenoch. And the reason he jumped ship yesterday, or I mean, obviously he was kind of outed, but was preparing to jump ship, was because he's quite clearly made the calculation there is simply not going to be a vacancy after May, which is why he's gone. And I think that's indicative of something that we've been seeing for several months now. And you know, I was very, very critical about Kemi Badenoch in the early stages of her leadership. I was one of many who thought that she would definitely be gone after May. But certainly since Tory party conference, her speech at party conference, since her response to the budget, there is no doubt that she is starting very, very slowly to sort of drag the Tory party out of the abyss. Now we have to caveat that. Obviously, we've got a situation here where the right in British politics are currently sort of fractured straight down the middle. But to go back to your original point, a lot of people thought after the last election that the Tory party was dead. A number of people thought initially thought under Kemi Badenoch's leadership it would be interred very, very quickly. I actually think you can see a route back now for the Conservative Party, despite the sort of the dramas of yesterday.
Yeah, that's really the centre of the question. Is there a route back for the Tories? Has it? Just a final point on this, Dan. We spoke to Oscar Redrup a second on this very point as well. Governing from the centre, that was always the rule of thumb. You have to govern from the centre. If you don't, you're dead in the water. Has that changed?
Well, I think the centre, I don't think the fundamental principle has changed, but I think what represents the centre has changed, and that's the thing. But I think look, the reality is, and we are starting to see this increasingly, there is a significant anti-reform sort of stop for reform, stop farage vote and mood starting to develop in the country. And Kemi Badenoch, as a result of what she did yesterday, I think is in a better position to exploit that now than she was 24 hours ago.
Yeah. And you're right. I mean, her star, I know it's a horrible cliche, but her star seems to be rising and all the rest of it. Is it now about Tories putting meat on the bones of policy? There has been a lot of almost trying to out-reform, ECHR, those kind of things. What's their most advisable route to, other than, you know, watching other politicians fall by the wayside, maybe reform, you know, perhaps slowing down a tad? What is to be that real credible force? What route do they need to take? What does Kemi Badenoch need to do?
I think we kind of saw the model in the last quarter of last year. Kemi Badenoch took the decision months, 2 or 3 months out from the budget, that she was going to focus very, very much and almost exclusively on the economy as the fundamental issue, and not get sucked into some of the sort of the culture war issues that obviously Nigel Farage is so masterful at exploiting. And that was successful, because as soon as the conversation switched onto the economy, Nigel Farage and reform were kind of sidelined. They weren't really in the debate. So I think the key for Kemi Badenoch and her team is, to what extent can they keep the focus on the economy? Can they keep the focus on those bread and butter issues? Yeah. Labour has obviously destroyed its own credibility with obviously the budget and hiking taxes on working people and reversing the pledge not to hike taxes on working people. Reform do not have anything that I think remotely resembles a coherent economic strategy at the moment. That is the opening for Kemi Badenoch and the Tories. The question is whether they can keep the focus on that over the next 12 months.
Dan, thank you. Great to see you again as well. Dan Hodges, commentator with the Mail on Sunday, columnist over there too. Thank you to him. Let's book with Tom Jones. He's a Conservative councillor for Scotton and Lower Wensleydale. Afternoon to you, Tom. I mean, look, it's tricky time to be a Tory. Once upon a time, you couldn't even say you were a Tory because people thought, you're that kind of bizarre group of mad right-wingers. That kind of tag has been given to somebody else now. Who are the Tory party and can they survive? Afternoon to you, Tom.
Afternoon. What an amazing opening question. I think actually one of the interesting things about the Jenrick defection, you've just touched on it there. What is the Tory party? I think Jenrick leaving is both a cause and a function of basically reform now existing as an outlet to the right. I think his declining stock and position in the party is because a lot of the basically right-wing members who would have been shaking the tree to get rid of Kemi and get Jenrick in have now left to reform. So I think basically we are a much more, we have moved to the right, but I think we are a much more centrist party simply because of reform's existence and because of the fact that for the last year they have turned what most people thought was a temporary polling bounce into, I think they've been in the lead for something like 300 polls. It's something crazy now.
Yeah. Did you vote for Robert Jenrick to be leader of your party?
I not only voted for him, I campaigned for him very actively. Okay. And the great thing about lost causes is that you can never be proven wrong.
Yeah. So what do you make then of his defection? Are you going to follow him?
I'm not personally, no. I'm not standing again on the council, so I'm just going to see what happens, basically.
Is that because you're fed up of being a Tory?
No, I just think I don't want to stand again, but basically I think it's a good time to kind of see where the right is going to land. I think we're going through a seismic change. It's similar to Canada in the early 90s, where the establishment right-wing party was taken over by an insurgent right-wing party, and I think that might be what we're living through right now.
I mean, Reform are interesting. They often get accused of being a one-trick pony, that it's all about immigration and beyond that, and Dan Hodges was just talking about the economy. He senses that Reform are quite weak in that department, and actually that could be the Kemi Badenoch and the Conservatives' sort of ace card in this sense, that they will be able to draw out some real credibility despite what's happened in the past. Do you share that analysis that, you know, not everything is fine and dandy in the land of reform?
No, I absolutely share that analysis. So Reform are in the kind of nascent stages of policy development. Danny Kruger has been put in charge of preparing them for government. They now have a reform-aligned think tank that's starting up. Basically, because they're an insurgent party, they can't rely on the kind of policy development and talent pipeline networks that an existing party like the Conservatives have got. And it is taking them a while to get up to speed with that. I think Dan is right that there is a particular problem on the economy where the Tories are particularly strong, but there was a poll the other day that showed Reform were the most trusted on the economy. You know, at the end of the day, yes, they don't have a plan, but there are a lot of people who are supporting Reform, not for a change of government, but for a change of regime. Yeah,
it is that. Will Kemi Badenoch last till the 2029 election then, do you sense, Tom? What's your assessment of her as your leader?
Well, Jenrick's removal has really strengthened Kemi's personal position, because now her most kind of likely rival has now been removed, and she's taken the sting out of the tail with a defection. She's actually probably handled the defection about as well as she could have done, really. She's certainly safe until May's election, which I think are going to be catastrophic for the Tories, frankly. But basically, there is a lack of a challenger. Her next biggest challenger now is James Cleverly. He's been laying very, very low since he finished third in the leadership election last time round. He was expected to win. There were some suggestions that he was playing some kind of games with lending votes and got booted out by accident. And the other winners from this are the kind of next generation, people like Katie Lamb, who are, you know, maybe thinking about leadership post-Kemi, post the 2029 election. She will certainly last until May. I think Robert Jenrick's removal means she lasts beyond the local elections in May, and I think she probably will take us into the general election.
Can you see the Conservatives forming a government in the next generation, shall we say?
In a political generation, yes, within a very kind of specific set of circumstances. And I think that probably the circumstances are going to be that reform come in 2029 and make such an unholy mess of things. I mean, basically declaring nuclear war on ourselves. They'll have to do that badly. I think then at that point we could see the Conservatives coming back in. But I think it's probably going to be 15 to 20 years minimum.
Wow, that's interesting. Not great news for Kemi if she's listening. Tom, thank you very much indeed. Very honest assessment from Councillor Tom Jones. He's a Conservative councillor for Scotton and Lower Wensleydale. Thank you, although he's finishing that role fairly soon, from perhaps May, from what I can gather from what he just said. It's kind of fascinating. What are the political appetite? I think the word common sense, we're the home of common sense here, OK? That, I think, is what people are crying out for. I don't think this is just about immigration, ultimately. It's such a huge strand of this. I mean, it's massive. Let's not underplay that. But I think it's the sense of a country that's lost its mind. That's where we're at the moment. And obviously I'm thinking about, you know, people who go to jail because of something they tweeted, even if they tweeted something so awful and egregious that, you know, you still wonder whether jail time is the right use of kind of our money or anybody's time. It's some of the gender madness. A lot of this stuff really grew and flourished under the last Tory administration. So you've got immigration. It's nonsensical that 60-odd thousand blokes can jump on a rubber boat and start a life in the UK with no permission. That's unfathomable. There's no common sense. The gender issue. Oh, is it a man? Is it a woman? That person over there with the beard and the hairy chest apparently is a woman. No, it's that. It is what you can and cannot say on social media, although I'm now, you know, I'm more aware than ever that social media isn't just a little bit of a playground. It plays an important role in life, rightly or wrongly. So it has to adhere to, you know, some rules and regs, but I don't think we send people to jail for stuff there, do we? Unless they've literally threatened to kill you. So there's all of that I think feeds into the sense that whether it's the Tories or Labour or whoever, that our country has lost its mind. So yes, immigration is the underpinning big one, but there's all these other strands of nonsensical things that have happened and erupted over the last decade or so.